Our scripture reading comes from the first book of Timothy, chapter 6, verses 17 through 18. It says, "Command those who are rich in this present age not to be haughty, nor to trust in uncertain riches, but in the living God, who gives us richly all things to enjoy. Let them do good, that they may be rich in good works, ready to give, willing to share." You may be seated.
If you take the newspaper here in Garland County, you may have noticed that Michael Cox, age 66, passed away last week. Let me assure you that is not me. I am still alive. I am having some weird problems this afternoon, starting about 4 o'clock. I'm having constant flashes of light on this side, and I've got about 12 floaters. I've never had a floater, but I've got about 12 floaters floating over here on this side. We Googled those symptoms, and the most likely culprit is a detached retina. Through the help of Jean Cashmere and her daughter, I got a doctor's appointment at 8 o'clock in the morning, and hopefully they'll take care of that. For that reason, I'm not wearing a jacket tonight because I don't want to get hot. I got hot this morning, and I don't want to get hot on top of all these other problems. So please bear with me. I'm just shirt and tie tonight. Before I go, and I will be leaving during the invitation song, and Donnie is going to be taking the responses and also making announcements. Before I do that, we have a sermon to kick off. We have a sermon series to start. That sermon series is called, "Hey, That's Not in the Bible." What we're going to do in this series is we're going to be looking at different thoughts, different ideas, different concepts that people believe belong in the Bible, but they're not in the Bible. Tonight, we look at the concept of money. For several years, I had the privilege of teaching in a Christian high school. I taught 12th grade Bible class. When I would first start off the semester, I would give them a quiz with different statements. And the response was be, "Do you believe this is in the Bible or not?" 80% said that money is the root of all evil is in the Bible. Now, money is powerful, and money does have an effect on people. Money has a way of changing people. Money can make gold a person's God, and greed their creed. That's true. Money, though, is neutral. It's neither good nor evil. The difference is how money is used and how it impacts you. We have over 500 Bible verses on the subject of money. None of them say money is the root of all evil. But you say, "Well, Michael, I know it's in there." Well, here's what you're referring to. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10. "For the love of money." You see, it's not just people who have money. You know, we like to say it's not those millionaires and billionaires. It's people like you and me with a little bit of money, or maybe very little money, but we can have the love of money. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil, for which some have strayed from the faith in their greediness and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. The love of money can impact any of us. It doesn't matter how much money is in our bank account, or even if we have a bank account. money can impact us because we can end up having a love of money. Tonight, let's look at what I call the ABCs of biblical understanding about money. A, acknowledge that money itself is an evil. Money can be used as a tool for good, or it can be used as a tool for evil. With money, a person can selfishly serve his own desires, or he can give generously to help God's kingdom. Just like Ananias and Sapphira in the book of Acts, it all comes down to a choice. In my ministry over the years, I have personally known 4 Christians who were millionaires. In fact, all 4 of them were multi-millionaires. 2 of them. 2 of these men were so generous. If a missionary needed a little extra help, if a church project needed a little extra push, whatever it was, he was first in line to give. He one time told me this. He said, Michael, I can't preach like you. I don't know why anybody would want to, but he said, I can't preach like you. I can't lead singing like he named some of our better song leaders. I can't even teach a class, but I know how to make money. I know how to make a lot of money. And because of that, he was so generous in helping good projects get off the ground, in helping the church minister to that community. On the other hand, I have known 2 men who were not generous. They were not. They were multimillionaires, again, just like the other 2, but they were not generous. In fact, one time when one of these men, when his home congregation was getting ready to build a new building, he left and went to another congregation in the county. Why? Because he didn't want to be asked to give to that building project. You see, it's how to look at money. The consuming love for money is a bad root. Remember the story, the Ring story by Tolkien, the Lord of the Rings? Remember a character named Gollum? If you remember the movies, Gollum was a regular person, and he became so consumed with that precious ring that he wanted to always have. Let's now read what Paul said in 1 Timothy chapter 6. Verse 6. Now godliness with contentment is great gain. Being godly, doing the right things with contentment. Those 2 multimillionaires that were so generous, those 2 Christians, they had contentment. They knew they were doing good, and they enjoyed doing good. For we brought nothing into this world, and it's certain we can carry nothing out. You don't ever see a funeral hearse pulling a U-Haul. We can't take it with us. And having food and clothing, with these we should be content. But those who desire to be rich, want. Those who desire to be rich fall into temptation and a snare and into many foolish and harmful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. It's that love of money. It's that desire. The 3 English words which I just read, love of money, in the Greek is actually just one Greek word. That one Greek word literally means love for silver. How do you get rid of a weed in your garden? I don't have a lot of time to devote to my flower beds. So I have weeds in my flower beds quite often. Pam and Tom, you know that. You see my weeds. If you just kind of pull at it and the root stays in the ground, that weed is going to come right back. What do you got to do? You got to pull it up, root and all. Because if that root is left there, that weed is going to come back stronger than ever. The consuming love of money acts much the same way. If we don't cut it out and get the root out, then it just controls our heart. And it makes us put money in as our God. Money becomes more important than God to us. Beware. Beware of possession obsession. It's not the money that people love. It's all the stuff that money buys. And we want that stuff. In fact, we have so much stuff, we often end up having to rent a storage building to store our stuff because we like stuff. When your life is driven by the desire to have more and more, you suffer from obsession. Think back for just a moment now. Think back to what your grandparents had. Think about their house. Think about how probably simple that house was. Think about the furnishings, the furniture in that house. Think about probably how simple the furnishings were for that house. Think about how simple their life was. They probably spent a lot of time, if they had a front porch, they probably spent a lot of time on that front porch because that was their time for entertainment, for fellowship, for talking, because, they didn't really have anything else. There wasn't a TV for them when they were young and growing up and raising their family. Now we have what? TVs in every room. We got TVs in our bedroom, we got TVs in our kitchen, we got TVs in the living room, we got TVs in the den. We got all kinds of entertainment. We have become possession obsession. Americans are notorious for spending money they don't have, to buy things they don't need, to impress people they don't even like. We have, so many times we fall into that trap of keeping up with the Joneses. And we're spending our money and we're buying things. How many things in your house, how many things in my house have I bought that I didn't truly need? Our possessions can become controlling. In marriage enrichment, until recently, I would say that money matters was the second most common problem I tackled. Up until recently, I would always say that communication breakdown was the first most common, frequent problem, and that the handling of money matters was the second most common problem in young marriages. Now, unfortunately, pornography has shot up to number one on that list. But still, there's a problem, especially with young couples. We want to have everything that mom and dad had, but we don't want to wait for it. We want to have everything that mom and dad had that they accumulated in 40, 50 years, but we want to have it right now. So what do? We use the credit cards, and the credit card debt shoots up. Now hold it here, Michael. Michael, I know that you use 3 credit cards, and I have for many, many years. I have never paid interest on any credit card, ever. I use those credit cards to my advantage to pay for a lot of stuff that I can use for my friends and family. I'm talking about travel for them. I use that in that way. I do not pay credit card interest. In fact, I'm 67 years old and I've never even had car interest notes. I've never bought a car on credit, just a house. Let's look now at verse number 9 again. But those who desire to be rich fall into temptation and a snare, into many foolish and harmful lusts, which drown men in destruction. It's that desire, it's that love, it's that want. We have to be on guard for that. Beware of possession obsession. You know, there's many myths about money, about how money lures people into what I call the money trap. Here is myth number 1. More stuff will make me happy. If I just have more stuff, if I had that car, if I had that TV, if I had this, if I had that, it would make me happy. Does it? No, it doesn't. Just look at the life of Howard Hughes. During his lifetime, he was one of the wealthiest men in the United States, and he died. He died a very pitiful death because the stuff he had did not make him happy. We have the highest divorce rate in the U.S. That highest rate is among the most affluent. The highest suicide rate in our country is among the most affluent. In 2019, a very rich man committed suicide. When they found his body, 2 things were found on his body: a pile of cash and a note. Here's what that note said: I have discovered during my life that piles of money do not bring happiness. I am taking my life because I can no longer stand my life. When I was an ordinary worker, I was happy. Now that I am rich, I'm sad and prefer death. Look at McDonald's. McDonald's, they're smart. They know how to market. They decided to make a meal that would be somewhat appealing to children. And they would stick in there some little cheap little toy that a child might desire. And what do they call it? A Happy Meal. You're buying happiness. Can you buy happiness? No, not really. Because when that child has that meal and is playing with that toy, often those toys don't last. They break. Or if they don't break, the child just becomes tired of the toy. And now the child is no longer happy. Happiness is fleeting for all of us. True joy is only found in Jesus. He's the only one that can make us have a joyful life. Luke chapter 12, Jesus said this: take heed and beware of what? Coveting. Coveting. For one's life does not consist in the abundance of the things he possesses. So, what do? Do we just give away all of our money? Do we give away all of our possessions and day to day? No. Go back to the verse, the passage that Tim read. What did Paul say? Command those who are rich in this present age. There was rich people back then, 2,000 years ago. Probably Barnabas was maybe among them, and he had land that he sold. Maybe even Luke, being a physician, maybe he had money. John Mark's family, they had a house in Jerusalem. Maybe they were more of the wealthy people of that day and time. Command those who are rich in this present age. Timothy, you may be surrounded with people who maybe have some money, that have possessions. Command those who are rich in this present age not to be haughty, nor to trust in uncertain riches, but in the living God, who gives us richly all things to enjoy. Let them do good, that they be rich in good works, ready to give, willing to share. we should be willing to share, willing to give. You know, we've been talking about the rich, and it's so easy to say, well, the rich are those people out there. We're not rich. The rich are those people out there in the world. Friends, in the world's eyes, every one of us is rich. If you have a home to go to, you're rich. On a mission trip to Costa Rica, I saw the places that so many of those Christians were living in. Just 10 shacks, literally 10 shacks made out of tin on the side of a road. If you have money in the bank, you're rich in comparison to the world, because most people in the world don't have money in the bank. If you have more than one change of clothes, you are rich in the eyes of the world. You see, we're all rich. How are we going to handle our money? Are we going to be generous? Are we going to help people? Are we going to help God's kingdom to grow? Your net worth. Your net worth is not measured in dollars and cents, but in the value of your soul and in the value of the souls that you can impact for God. Remember your 5 and how you want to impact them. That is truly your net worth, because net worth is not about money, really. Net worth is about relationships. Your first relationship is with God. Do you have that? Are you a Christian? Next, if you are a Christian, the next is your horizontal relationships with friends and family and how you can hopefully impact them. You see, the best things in life aren't things at all. It's relationships. Money myth number 2. I deserve it, so I want it now. I deserve it, so I want it now. I remember working with a young couple approximately 10 years ago. They had been married for just under a year, and they were already having problems. What was their problem? Get ready for this. They had credit card debt of $92,000. Why do they have a credit card debt of $92,000? Because they wanted to have everything that mom and dad had, but they wanted it now. Because in the words of the wife, she said, we deserve it. We deserve to have nice things. Guess what? At that time, the two of them had an income, net income of approximately $50,000. So they had twice more debt than their combined net income. That's not a good ratio at all. Some of us may remember maybe our parents or grandparents talking about rationing during the Second War. People had to delay their gratification. They had to delay because it was things they could buy. Things were being rationed. That's the concept of deferred gratification. Americans today don't have that. Americans are drowning in a sea of debt. Proverbs chapter 22. The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. Why does your credit card want you just to pay the minimum? Why do they make all those things, all those offers, all those enticements for you to use it? Because they want you to pile up the debt. Because they're going to make a lot of money on your interest as you try to pay down that debt. With young couples, here's my personal advice to them. I say, look at your income. Look at your net income. Let's have a starting point here. I say give 10% to the church, 10% you put into savings, then live on the 80%. And then as your income increases, change that first 10% to a bigger number, maybe 15%, maybe even higher, because you can. We often get that backwards. We end up spending what we want to do, and then we don't have any money in savings, and we don't have any money to give to God's church. Money myth number 3. More money will end my worries. That's wrong. Money actually adds to your worries. Matthew chapter 6, verse 19. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, where are we putting our treasure? Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Money adds to the worries, because with money you end up making it your God. Remember the story of the rich farmer in Luke chapter 12? The rich farmer had a bumper crop. He said, look at this, I'm going to build bigger barns and have more storage. Then I'm going to kick back and enjoy life. But what happened? His soul was required of him that evening, that night. Because why? Because he left out God. Contentment. Remember what Paul said to Timothy? He said, now godliness with contentment is great gain. Contentment is the antidote for the poison of financial worry. Are we contented? Are we willing to accept less? Are we willing to get by on less? Are we contented with what we have? Let's now look once again at 1 Timothy chapter 6. Let's begin in verse 7. For we brought nothing in this world, and it's certain we can carry nothing out. And having food and clothing, with these we shall be content. What are you satisfied with? What are you willing to be contented with? Ecclesiastes chapter 4, better a handful with quietness, just having a little bit, than both hands full together with toil and grasping for the wind. It's better to just get by with that one handful than to try to grab more and more and more. What is contentment? Contentment is an attitude of trust. We're talking about trust in God. We're talking about making sure that we trust God, because, God is going to meet our needs. It's needs over wants. What do we really need? Because most of the things are really in the category of a want. I want this, I want that. What are our true needs? Hebrews chapter 13. Keep your life free from love of money. The love of money. Not just money, but the love of money. And be content with what you have. For he has said, I will never leave you, nor forsake you. So we can confidently say, the Lord is my helper. I will not fear. What can man do to me? I received a call one night. It was about a fire that had broken out. One of my church members, who would become a great elder in the church, he had started a business, and it was kind of doing well, but, it was still struggling. He had started a business. Someone had broken into that business, had taken what money they could find in the office, and they had set fire to the building to destroy the evidence of their break-in. I was standing there next to him as we watched the fire. The fire department said, we're just going to have to let it burn out because we can't save anything. We were standing there together watching it, and I said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I know how much work you put into this business. I know how important this is to your family. He turned to me and said, Michael, I'm okay. I still have my wife. I still have my 3 sons, and we still have our health. That's all that I need. He was contented. He was contented to have what he needed. Are we that way? Matthew chapter 6. No one can serve 2 masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. Money can be our God, little G-O-D. The true God, capital G-O-D, is the one that we should put first. But do we? Now, we come to what I call the important part. We're going to talk about becoming a Christian. Because if you're not a Christian, you have no hope. Do you believe? Will you repent? Will you confess? Will you be baptized? Will you take that step? Most of us here tonight have done exactly that. But do we need to seek forgiveness? Do we need to say, God, you know, other things have become more important to me. Maybe even money has become more important to me. I need to put my focus back on you. You can seek forgiveness. If you wish, the church is ready to stand with you and pray for you. James 5:16. Who is number one in your heart? Is it God or is it something else? If you have any need to respond, we're going to have an elder down here waiting for you. Will you please come? Let me stand and sing for your encouragement.